The stars looked different that morning when Dr. Elena Rodriguez floated through the observation deck of the International Space Station. She had seen thousands of sunrises from this height, but something felt wrong today. The deep space monitoring equipment had been picking up strange signals for 3 days now. Signals that moved in patterns no natural phenomenon could explain. Elena pressed her face against the thick glass and stared into the darkness beyond Earth's blue glow. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her whole career hoping for this moment. The moment when humanity would finally meet something else out there in the vast emptiness of space. But now that it might be happening, her stomach felt tight with worry. The communication array started beeping behind her. Elena pushed herself away from the window and floated over to the console. The signal was stronger now and coming from somewhere near Jupiter. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The pattern was too complex to be random, but too organized to be anything humans had ever created. Down on Earth, General Marcus Webb stood in the command center of the Unified Defense Command. The underground facility hummed with activity as dozens of technicians watched screens filled with data they did not understand. Webb had been a soldier for 30 years, but nothing in his training had prepared him for contact with alien life. The general's phone rang, and he answered it quickly. Elena's voice came through the speaker, sounding excited and frightened at the same time. She told him the signals were getting stronger and more frequent. Something big was coming toward Earth, and it would be here soon. Webb looked at the massive display screen that showed Earth's orbital space. Satellites and space stations appeared as small dots moving in their regular patterns. Everything looked normal, but he knew that was about to change. He gave orders to put all defense systems on high alert and to prepare for something humanity had never faced before. High above Earth's atmosphere, something shimmered into view. The ships appeared slowly like ghosts, becoming solid. They were huge and made of what looked like crystal that caught and reflected light in ways that hurt to look at directly. The largest ship was the size of a small city, and it moved without making any sound that human instruments could detect. Inside the lead ship, Commander Valix Thorne studied the blue and green world that filled his viewing screen. Thorne was tall, even for his people, standing nearly 10 feet high. His body was made of living crystal that changed color with his emotions. Right now it showed the pale blue of curiosity mixed with the green of mild amusement. Thorne had conquered 12 worlds. For the Zephyrian Empire, he knew what to look for when judging a planet's inhabitants. The beings down on this world, called Earth, seemed particularly weak and dependent on their environment. His scanners showed they needed artificial heating in cold places and artificial cooling in hot places. They wore protective clothing when the weather changed and seemed to struggle with their own planet's conditions. The commander's science officer approached with a datapad. Dr. Zilara was smaller than Thorne, but her crystal body sparkled with the intelligence that had made her the best xenobiologist in the fleet. She showed him readings that confirmed what their initial scans had suggested. The dominant species on Earth was fragile and poorly adapted to their environment. Elena watched the alien ships through her telescope and felt her heart racing. The vessels were beautiful, but their size made her feel small and helpless. She tried to count them, but they kept appearing as more ships decloaked. There had to be hundreds of them now, forming a loose formation around Earth's moon. Her communication equipment suddenly came alive with a signal unlike anything she had ever heard. The sound was like music mixed with mathematics. It took her computer several minutes to realize the aliens were trying to establish contact using basic mathematical concepts. Elena's hands shook as she began responding with the same pattern the aliens had sent. The conversation that followed was simple, but historic. The aliens identified themselves as the Zephyrian Empire and stated they were conducting a survey of inhabited worlds. Elena tried to explain that she represented Earth's scientific community, but the translation program was crude and much was lost in the exchange. Commander Thorne reviewed the initial contact report with satisfaction. The Earth beings were even more primitive than his first scans had suggested. Their representative could barely manage basic mathematical communication and seemed overwhelmed by simple contact procedures. The being called itself Elena and claimed to speak for something called the scientific community, but clearly had no real authority. The commander's tactical officer brought him analysis of Earth's military capabilities. The planet had weapons that could barely reach their own moon, and their fastest ships took months to travel between nearby planets. Their population centers had no significant defensive barriers, and their technology was thousands of years behind Zephyrian standards. Thorne made his decision quickly. This world would make an excellent agricultural colony once the native population was relocated to more suitable environments. The beings were clearly struggling to survive on their own planet and would probably be grateful for rescue to worlds better suited to their fragile nature. Elena ended the communication session feeling both thrilled and terrified. Humanity had made first contact with an alien civilization, but something about the exchange worried her. The alien responses seemed polite but dismissive, as if they were talking to children rather than equals. She immediately contacted General Webb to report what had happened. The general listened carefully to her description of the conversation and asked her to send him all the data she had collected. He could hear the concern in her voice, and it matched his own growing worry about the alien intentions. Webb called an emergency meeting of Earth's world leaders. Representatives from every major nation gathered by video conference to discuss humanity's response to the alien contact. The debate was fierce, with some calling for immediate military preparation while others insisted on diplomatic solutions. As the leaders argued, the alien fleet continued to grow larger. More ships arrived each hour until the space around Earth's moon looked like a vast parking lot filled with crystal vessels. The aliens seemed to be preparing for something big, but their intentions remained a mystery. Elena continued monitoring alien communications, but the messages had become more technical and harder to understand. She could tell the aliens were conducting detailed scans of Earth's surface and atmosphere, but she could not determine why they needed so much information. The last message she received that day was brief and formal. Commander Thorne announced that the Zephyrian Empire had completed its initial assessment of Earth and its inhabitants. He stated that detailed colonization plans would begin immediately and that relocation procedures for the native population would commence soon. Elena stared at the message in horror. As she realized what the aliens really intended, they had not come to Earth as friends or even as conquerors. They had come as farmers who saw humans as nothing more than inconvenient weeds to be cleared away before planting. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship, watching as the alien fleet moved into attack formation. The crystal ships sparkled like deadly jewels against the black of space, and their numbers had grown to over 1,000 vessels. Kate had spent the last 6 months preparing for this moment. Every shipyard on Earth had worked around the clock to build humanity's first real space navy. The ships were crude compared to alien technology, but they represented the best effort of every nation working together. Kate knew they were probably going to lose, but humanity would not go down without a fight. Dr. Alex Turner worked frantically in his laboratory deep inside the Rocky Mountains. As Earth's leading atmospheric scientist, he had been studying every piece of data about the aliens that intelligence could gather. Something about their biology puzzled him, but he could not figure out what it meant. The aliens seemed to avoid any direct contact with Earth's atmosphere and always used sealed suits when they had to leave their ships. Elena Rodriguez had moved from the space station to Turner's lab, where she could work more effectively on alien communication. She had managed to establish limited contact with someone called Dr. Zilara, who seemed to be the alien fleet's chief scientist. Their conversations were brief and technical, but Elena had learned that the aliens came from a world very different from Earth. The invasion began at dawn with a coordinated strike on Earth's orbital defenses. Kate watched in horror as alien weapons tore through human ships like they were made of paper. The crystal vessels moved with impossible grace, dodging missiles that should have hit them and firing beams of energy that could cut a battleship in half. Kate ordered her fleet to fall back toward Earth's atmosphere, hoping the planet's gravity might give them some advantage. As her ships retreated, she noticed something strange happening to the alien pursuit force. Several of their ships began moving erratically, and some even broke off their attack runs for no apparent reason. Captain Ryan Foster commanded a ground defense unit stationed near Denver. He had been a Marine for 15 years and had fought in conflicts all over the world, but nothing had prepared him for watching an alien invasion fleet descend from the sky. The crystal ships looked beautiful and terrifying as they broke through the clouds, trailing streams of ionized air. Foster's orders were simple: hold the line as long as possible and make the aliens pay for every inch of ground. His men were dug into defensive positions with the best weapons Earth could provide, but everyone knew they were facing impossible odds. The aliens had technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans possessed. The first alien dropships landed about a mile from Foster's position. The ships were smaller than the main fleet vessels, but still impressive with their crystal hulls that seemed to bend light around them. Foster watched through binoculars as the ships opened, and alien soldiers began pouring out. The aliens were tall and graceful, moving like dancers across the battlefield. Their crystal bodies caught the sunlight and threw it back in rainbow patterns that were almost hypnotic to watch. They carried weapons that looked more like works of art than instruments of war, but Foster knew they were deadly beyond anything humans had ever created. What happened next surprised everyone. The alien soldiers, who had seemed so confident and powerful in space, began moving more slowly once they were on the ground. Some of them stumbled, and a few even fell down for no apparent reason. Foster could see them talking to each other in their musical language, but they sounded confused and upset. Dr. Zalara stood inside her mobile laboratory watching her invasion force through security cameras. Something was wrong with her soldiers, but she could not understand what was causing the problem. Her warriors were the finest in the Zephyrian Empire, trained and equipped to conquer any world they encountered. They should have swept aside the primitive human defenders within minutes. Instead, her soldiers were reporting strange symptoms. They felt dizzy and weak, and some were having trouble breathing even through their environmental suits. The planet's gravity was stronger than they were used to, but not strong enough to cause this kind of problem. There had to be something else affecting them. Zalara began running detailed scans of the local environment, looking for anything that might explain what was happening to her troops. The atmosphere was thick and heavy compared to her homeworld, but that should not have been enough to disable trained soldiers. She started focusing on the atmospheric composition, hoping to find some kind of toxic gas or chemical weapon. Foster decided this was his chance to strike back. His men opened fire on the confused alien soldiers, and to everyone's amazement, the aliens began falling back. The crystal beings, who had seemed invincible from space, were struggling to fight effectively on Earth's surface. Foster ordered his troops to advance and press their unexpected advantage. The battle raged for hours with neither side able to gain a clear victory. The aliens had superior weapons and technology, but they seemed to be fighting at half strength. Human soldiers who should have been overwhelmed were holding their own and even pushing the aliens back in some areas. Turner watched the battle reports coming in from around the world and noticed a pattern. Alien forces were performing poorly in areas with high humidity and dense atmosphere, while they seemed more effective in mountainous regions where the air was thinner. An idea began forming in his mind, but it seemed too incredible to believe. Elena received an urgent communication from Dr. Zalara asking for information about Earth's atmospheric composition. The alien scientist sounded worried and confused as she described the problems her soldiers were experiencing. Elena realized this might be an opportunity to learn something important about alien biology. Elena told Zalara that Earth's atmosphere contained 21% oxygen and had a surface pressure that was much higher than most worlds. She described how human settlements were built to handle extreme weather conditions and how people adapted to live in environments ranging from frozen tundra to burning deserts. Zalara's response came back quickly, and Elena could hear shock in the aliens' translated words. The scientist asked Elena to repeat the atmospheric data several times, as if she could not believe what she was hearing. Zilara then asked detailed questions about human biology and how they could survive in such conditions. Turner ran calculations based on the atmospheric data Elena was sharing with the alien scientist. If his theory was correct, then Earth's atmosphere was actually toxic to the alien invaders. The oxygen concentration that humans breathed naturally was poisoning the crystal beings, and the atmospheric pressure was slowly crushing their delicate structures. Foster watched as more alien soldiers collapsed around him. The enemy troops were trying to retreat back to their ships, but many of them were too weak to make the journey. His men had stopped firing because the aliens were no longer fighting back effectively. It was like watching an army defeat itself. Commander Thorne received reports from battlefields around the world and could not understand what was happening. His forces had been trained to conquer any world in the galaxy, but they were being defeated by primitive beings with crude weapons. The humans were not winning through superior tactics or technology. They were winning simply by existing in an environment that was apparently lethal to Zephyrian physiology. Thorne called for a full retreat back to the fleet while Dr. Zilara worked desperately to understand what had gone wrong. The invasion that should have been completed in hours was turning into a disaster that threatened the entire Zephyrian force. The aliens who had dismissed humans as weak and fragile were learning that they had made a terrible mistake. As alien ships fled back to space, Foster and his men could hardly believe what they had witnessed. Humanity had won its first battle against an alien invasion not through strength or cleverness, but because Earth itself was fighting on their side. The planet that the aliens saw as evidence of human weakness was actually humanity's greatest weapon. Elena continued her conversations with Dr. Zilara, knowing that the alien scientist was beginning to understand the truth about Earth and its inhabitants. The world that looked like a garden paradise from space was actually one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy, and humans were the beings who had learned to call it home. Dr. Zilara worked without rest for 3 days analyzing every piece of data her instruments could gather about Earth's environment. What she discovered sent waves of shock through the Zephyrian fleet and changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about planetary habitability. The world below them was not a garden paradise inhabited by weak beings, but a death trap that would kill most known species within hours. The atmospheric analysis showed oxygen levels that would be toxic to 90% of galactic civilization. The gas that humans breathed casually would burn through Zephyrian lung tissue like acid. The atmospheric pressure that felt normal to Earth's inhabitants would slowly crush the crystalline structures that made up alien bodies. Even the temperature ranges that humans considered comfortable would stress most alien physiology beyond its limits. Zilara's hands trembled as she compiled her report for Commander Thorne. Every measurement confirmed what seemed impossible. Humans had not evolved on a gentle world that made them soft and dependent. They had evolved on one of the most hostile environments the galaxy had ever documented. What the Zephyrians had mistaken for weakness was actually evidence of incredible adaptation and strength. Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Park read the intelligence reports from the failed invasion with growing excitement. Her Special Forces unit had been tasked with finding ways to exploit alien weaknesses, but she had never imagined the enemy's greatest weakness would be Earth itself. Park began developing new tactics. Based on the understanding that aliens could barely survive in humanity's natural environment, Park's first mission took her team to an alien landing site where a crystal ship had crashed during the retreat. Her soldiers approached carefully, expecting heavy resistance, but found the vessel almost empty. The few alien crew members they encountered were weak and struggling to breathe even inside their environmental suits. Park realized that simply damaging alien life support systems would be more effective than any conventional weapon. Captain Ryan Foster received new orders that seemed almost too good to be true. Instead of preparing for desperate defensive actions, his unit was being equipped for offensive operations against alien positions. The creatures that had seemed invincible from space were now revealed to be completely dependent on their technology. Just to survive on Earth's surface, Foster led his men in an attack on an alien communication station built in the mountains where The thinner air made conditions slightly more tolerable for the invaders. Even there, the aliens were operating at reduced capacity and their response to the human assault was sluggish and confused. Foster's team destroyed the facility with minimal casualties, proving that the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Elena Rodriguez established regular communication sessions with Dr. Zalara, who seemed desperate to understand how humans could thrive in conditions that would kill her own people. The alien scientist asked detailed questions about human evolution and adaptation that revealed how little the galaxy truly understood about life on extreme worlds. Elena shared information about Earth's geological history, explaining how the planet's atmosphere had been poisonous to most life forms for billions of years. She described how early life had adapted to high oxygen levels and intense radiation, creating the foundation for all current Earth biology. What the aliens saw as a hostile environment was actually the only home humans had ever known. Dr. Alex Turner worked with Elena to provide Zalara with comprehensive data about Earth's environmental extremes. They shared information about humans living in deserts where temperatures could kill unprotected aliens in minutes. They described Arctic communities where the cold would freeze alien crystal bodies solid. They explained how humans routinely survive storms and weather patterns that would destroy most galactic technology. Commander Thorne faced the worst crisis of his military career as reports came in from around the Zephyrian Empire. The Galactic Council was demanding explanations for how an advanced fleet could be defeated by beings the initial survey had classified as primitive and weak. Thorne had no answers that would not destroy his reputation and possibly end his life. The commander called an emergency meeting with his senior staff to discuss their options. Retreat would mean admitting that the Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by creatures they had dismissed as harmless. Continuing the invasion would mean sending more soldiers to die in an environment that was slowly killing them. Neither choice offered any hope of success or survival. Dr. Zalara presented her complete analysis to the assembled officers, and the reaction was immediate disbelief followed by growing horror. The planet they had planned to colonize was more dangerous than the most extreme military training facilities. The beings they had planned to relocate were actually the most environmentally adapted species anyone had ever encountered. Zalara explained that Earth's surface conditions would be classified as a maximum security prison environment by galactic standards. The atmospheric composition alone would require constant life support for any alien visitor. Gravity would stress most alien bodies beyond their limits. The temperature variations would require massive energy expenditure just to maintain basic survival. General Marcus Webb received intelligence reports about the crisis aboard the alien fleet and realized that humanity now held an unexpected advantage. The beings who had come to conquer Earth were trapped in an environment that was slowly killing them. Every day they remained in Earth's atmosphere cost them resources and weakened their forces. Webb authorized a series of limited offensive operations designed to test alien capabilities and exploit their environmental vulnerabilities. Human forces began targeting alien atmospheric processors and life support facilities, knowing that without these systems the invaders would be helpless against Earth's natural conditions. Lieutenant Colonel Park led a raid on an alien supply depot where she discovered that the crystal beings required constant chemical supplements just to function in Earth's atmosphere. The depot contained enough life support materials to keep a small army alive, but it was heavily defended because the aliens could not afford to lose their environmental protection. Park's team used a simple but effective strategy instead of trying to destroy the depot with explosives. They simply damaged the facility's atmospheric seals and let Earth's air do the rest. The oxygen-rich atmosphere flooded into the alien storage areas, destroying sensitive equipment and making the supplies unusable. Foster received reports from other units around the world describing similar successes. Human forces were winning battles not through superior firepower but by forcing aliens to fight in conditions that favored humanity. Every engagement in Earth's natural environment gave humans an overwhelming advantage. The tide of war was turning. As humans learned to use their own planet as a weapon, Alien forces retreated to orbital positions where they could maintain their environmental systems, but this left them unable to complete their mission of conquering Earth's surface. The invasion had become a siege where the defenders held all the advantages. Elena's conversations with Dr. Zilara became more frequent and more detailed as the alien scientists tried to understand how the Zephyrian Empire had made such a catastrophic error in judgment. Zilara admitted that their survey methods were designed for normal worlds with standard atmospheric conditions. They had never encountered a planet where the native species had adapted to such extreme conditions. Turner provided Zilara with historical data about human expansion across Earth's diverse environments. He explained how humans had adapted to live everywhere from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountain peaks. He described how human technology was designed to function in conditions that would destroy most alien equipment within hours. The revelation that was spreading through the alien fleet went beyond simple tactical considerations. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand that they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans were not just another species struggling to survive on a difficult world. They were the product of evolution on a planet so hostile that it had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Zilara sent her final report to the Galactic Council, knowing that it would change how the entire galaxy viewed both Earth and humanity. The beings they had dismissed as weak and primitive were actually the most environmentally adapted species anyone had ever documented. The planet they had targeted for easy conquest was actually a fortress world that would defeat most invasion forces simply through its natural conditions. As word of the report spread through the alien fleet, morale collapsed completely. The soldiers who had expected an easy victory now understood they were fighting an enemy that had been shaped by conditions that would kill them. The conquest that should have taken days was turning into a disaster that threatened the survival of the entire Zephyrian invasion force. General Marcus Webb stood in the war room studying tactical displays that showed a completely transformed battlefield. The aliens who had once held overwhelming superiority were now trapped in their ships, afraid to venture into the atmosphere that humans breathed without thinking. Webb knew this was humanity's chance to turn defense into victory, but the window of opportunity would not last forever. Webb launched Operation Pressure Point with coordinated strikes across the globe designed to exploit every weakness the aliens had revealed. Colonel Stephen Hayes led the primary assault force targeting alien installations that had been established in high-altitude locations where the atmospheric pressure was slightly more tolerable for the crystal beings. Hayes had spent weeks studying the intelligence reports about alien environmental vulnerabilities and had developed tactics specifically designed to use Earth's atmosphere as a weapon. His soldiers carried equipment that could breach alien atmospheric seals and expose their technology to the corrosive effects of oxygen-rich air. The first target was an alien command center built on a mountain peak in the Himalayas. The facility was heavily defended, but the alien soldiers manning the defenses were operating at reduced efficiency due to the atmospheric conditions. Hayes led his team in a direct assault, knowing that every minute the aliens spent fighting in Earth's environment weakened them further. Major Beth Crawford commanded the air support for Hayes' operation, flying modified aircraft that could operate at extreme altitudes where alien ships were forced to maintain their environmental systems. Crawford's squadron had been equipped with weapons designed to damage alien atmospheric processors rather than trying to penetrate their advanced armor. The battle for the Mountain Command Center lasted only 3 hours, but it proved the effectiveness of humanity's new strategy. The alien defenders became increasingly sluggish as their environmental systems struggled to maintain safe conditions. Several alien soldiers collapsed from oxygen poisoning even though they were wearing protective suits. Captain Foster received orders to lead a ground assault on an alien mining operation in the Amazon rainforest. The humidity and dense atmosphere in the jungle created conditions that were nearly lethal to the crystal beings. Foster's team found the alien workers barely able to function even with massive life support equipment. The mining facility was abandoned without a fight as the alien workers retreated to their transport ships. Foster's soldiers were amazed to discover that they could disable alien equipment simply by exposing it to the humid jungle air. The moisture and oxygen levels that felt normal to humans corroded alien technology within minutes. Major Danny Clark. The aerial squadrons in attacks on alien aircraft operating in Earth's lower atmosphere. Clark had discovered that alien ships became increasingly unstable as they descended into the denser air near Earth's surface. The atmospheric pressure that humans took for granted interfered with alien navigation and control systems. Clark's pilots used this knowledge to force alien aircraft into lower altitudes where they became sitting targets. The crystal ships that had seemed invincible in space became clumsy and vulnerable when forced to operate in the thick soup of Earth's atmosphere. Several alien aircraft crashed simply because their pilots could not maintain control in the dense air. Commander Julia Stone received the most ambitious assignment of the counteroffensive. Her team was tasked with boarding and capturing intact alien vessels to gather intelligence and technology. Stone had been chosen because her background in deep-sea diving had given her experience with high-pressure environments that proved useful when dealing with alien atmospheric systems. Stone's first boarding action targeted a damaged alien cruiser that had been forced to land in the Canadian wilderness. The ship's environmental systems were failing and the crew was struggling to maintain breathable conditions. Stone's team approached the vessel knowing that time was on their side because the aliens were slowly being poisoned by their own failing life support. The boarding action was unlike anything in military history. Stone's soldiers moved through the alien ship while wearing simple breathing masks while the alien crew required full environmental suits just to survive in their own vessel. The humans, who should have been at a disadvantage in alien technology, found themselves completely superior in environmental adaptation. Stone's team captured the alien cruiser by the simple expedient of damaging its atmospheric filters. The alien crew surrendered rather than face the choice between suffocation and exposure to Earth's deadly atmosphere. For the first time in the war, humans had captured alien technology and prisoners without suffering any casualties. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with the captured alien prisoners to learn more about their physiology and the extent of their environmental limitations. The aliens she interviewed described Earth as the most hostile environment they had ever encountered. They could not understand how any intelligent species could evolve in conditions that would kill most galactic life within hours. The prisoners revealed that the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered a world like Earth, where the native atmosphere was toxic to most known life forms. Their survey methods were designed for planets with thin atmospheres and low oxygen content. They had no protocols for dealing with worlds where the air itself was a weapon. Lieutenant Sarah Quinn established communication with other human resistance groups around the world coordinating attacks on alien positions. Quinn discovered that human forces everywhere were reporting the same successes. Aliens who seemed invincible in space became helpless when forced to fight in Earth's natural environment. Quinn helped coordinate a global offensive that targeted every alien installation on Earth's surface within a single 24-hour period. The attacks were timed to occur simultaneously, putting maximum pressure on alien forces already struggling with environmental challenges. The results exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Commander Thorne watched his invasion force disintegrate as reports came in from around the planet. His soldiers were retreating from every position on Earth's surface, unable to maintain operations in the hostile environment. The beings he had dismissed as weak were systematically destroying his forces, using nothing more than their planet's natural conditions. Thorne faced a choice between complete retreat and total destruction of his fleet. Continuing to fight meant sending more soldiers to die in an environment that was slowly killing them. Retreating meant admitting that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by creatures they had considered primitive and helpless. In desperation, Thorne threatened to bombard Earth's surface from orbit, hoping to force humanity into surrender. The threat backfired when his own crew began questioning the wisdom of fighting a species that treated a death world as home. Several Ship commanders refused to participate in orbital bombardment, knowing it would only make human survivors even more dangerous. Dr. Zilara openly challenged Thorne's leadership, presenting evidence that humans were not primitive beings struggling with their environment, but rather the most environmentally adapted species the galaxy had ever encountered. Her report to the Galactic Council had already reached other worlds, and the political implications were spreading throughout the Empire. General Webb received intelligence about the crisis aboard the alien fleet and realized that humanity now held the strategic initiative. The aliens who had come to conquer Earth were trapped in an impossible situation. They could not win on the surface because the environment was killing them, and they could not retreat without admitting catastrophic failure. Webb authorized Lieutenant Colonel Park to begin planning offensive operations against the alien fleet itself. If humans could board alien ships and survive in their artificial environments better than the aliens could survive on Earth, then humanity could take the war directly to the enemy. The species that had been dismissed as weak was about to become the aggressor. Colonel Hayes received orders to prepare for the most ambitious operation yet attempted. His forces would board the alien flagship and capture Commander Thorne himself. The mission seemed impossible, but the intelligence gathered from previous boarding actions suggested that humans might actually have advantages even aboard alien vessels. The counteroffensive was transforming the entire nature of the conflict. Humans were no longer fighting desperately for survival, but were actively hunting alien forces using their own planet as the ultimate weapon. The beings who had evolved to thrive in conditions that would kill most of the galaxy were about to teach the universe a lesson about the true meaning of strength and adaptation. Major Crawford prepared her pilots for missions that would take them directly to the alien fleet in Earth orbit. If the atmospheric advantages that had given humans victory on the surface could be extended to space operations, then humanity might actually be able to win a war that had seemed hopeless just months before. High Chancellor Morax arrived at Earth's orbital space aboard the massive Galactic Council mediation vessel 3 weeks after Dr. Zilara's report had reached the galactic capital. The ancient being had overseen diplomatic resolutions to hundreds of conflicts, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for the situation he found at Earth. An advanced military fleet was in full retreat from beings they had initially dismissed as primitive and weak. Chancellor Morax's first action was to conduct an independent analysis of Earth's environmental conditions, using the Council's most advanced scientific equipment. The results confirmed every detail of Zilara's shocking report. Earth was indeed one of the most hostile environments ever documented, and humans were the most environmentally adapted species in galactic records. The Chancellor's science team spent days studying atmospheric samples and environmental data from Earth's surface. They confirmed that the oxygen concentration alone would be lethal to 87% of known galactic species. The atmospheric pressure would crush most alien physiology, and the temperature variations would stress even the hardiest life forms beyond their survival limits. President Linda Carter stood in the orbital meeting facility that had been hastily constructed for the diplomatic negotiations. The station maintained a carefully controlled environment that allowed both humans and aliens to meet safely, but the symbolism was clear. Humans required no life support, while every alien delegation needed extensive environmental protection. Just to survive the meeting, Carter looked across the negotiating table at Chancellor Morax, who was encased in an environmental suit that made him look like a figure from a science fiction movie. The irony was not lost on her that the representatives of an advanced galactic civilization needed protection from the very air she was breathing naturally. The power dynamic had completely reversed from the early days of the invasion. General Webb sat beside President Carter, reviewing the remarkable transformation that had occurred over the past months. The alien fleet that had once numbered over 1,000 vessels had been reduced to fewer than 300 ships. The rest had been captured, damaged, or forced to retreat when their environmental systems failed in Earth's hostile atmosphere. Commander Thorne faced a military tribunal aboard Chancellor Morax's vessel, where he was forced to explain how an advanced fleet had been defeated by beings his initial reports had classified as weak and dependent. The commander's defense was that no previous galactic intelligence had suggested that any species could adapt to survive in conditions as extreme as those found on Earth. The tribunal reviewed recordings of human soldiers boarding alien ships while wearing minimal protective gear and operating effectively in environments that required full life support for alien crews. They watched footage of human forces disabling alien technology simply by exposing it to Earth's natural atmospheric conditions. The evidence was overwhelming that humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic experience. Dr. Zilara requested political asylum on Earth during the tribunal proceedings, stating that she wanted to continue studying the remarkable adaptations that had allowed humans to thrive in such an extreme environment. Her request was supported by Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Alex Turner, who had worked with her throughout the conflict to build the first real understanding between the species. Zilara's defection sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Empire and provided humanity with its first real ally among the galactic species. Her expertise in alien biology combined with human environmental science opened possibilities for cooperation that neither species had previously imagined. The scientist who had helped reveal humanity's true nature was now committed to building a future between the species. Captain Michelle Torres received appointment as Earth's first official liaison to the Galactic Council after demonstrating exceptional skill in cross-species communication during the conflict. Torres had served as a translator and cultural advisor during the boarding operations and had developed an understanding of alien psychology that made her invaluable for diplomatic work. Torres presented humanity's proposal to the assembled galactic representatives with confidence that came from knowing her species held advantages that few others could match. Instead of seeking conquest or revenge, Earth offered to share its environmental adaptation techniques and technologies in exchange for peaceful coexistence and mutual scientific cooperation. The proposal was revolutionary in galactic terms. No species had ever offered to help others adapt to extreme environments because no species had ever evolved the necessary capabilities. Humans were proposing to establish Earth as a training ground for extreme environment operations while sharing the biological and technological secrets that had made such adaptation possible. Chancellor Morax recognized the proposal as an opportunity to transform a military disaster into a diplomatic breakthrough. The Galactic Council had spent centuries avoiding worlds with hostile environments because the costs and risks were too high. Humanity was offering to make such worlds accessible for the first time in galactic history. Major Clark received command of the first joint human-alien expedition to test the new cooperation agreements. His mission was to establish a research station on a world that had been considered uninhabitable due to its dense atmosphere and high radiation levels. The planet designated Kepler 442c had been written off by galactic civilization, but human environmental technology might make colonization possible. Clark's team included both human specialists and alien scientists working together to overcome environmental challenges that neither species could handle alone. The humans provided adaptation techniques and environmental resistance, while the aliens contributed advanced technology and scientific knowledge. The combination proved more effective than either group could achieve independently. Dr. Turner worked with Zilara to develop new atmospheric processing techniques that could make hostile worlds habitable for multiple species. Their research combined human understanding of extreme environment survival with alien technology, creating possibilities that neither civilization had imagined before. The work represented the first truly collaborative scientific effort between humans and galactic civilization. The expedition to Kepler 442c succeeded beyond all expectations, establishing a permanent research facility on a world that galactic science had considered completely uninhabitable. Human environmental adaptation allowed the team to work safely in conditions that would have killed most aliens, while alien technology provided the infrastructure needed to support long-term operations. Elena Rodriguez established the first interspecies university dedicated to extreme environment research, with facilities both on Earth and in orbital stations where alien students could study safely. The curriculum combined human survival techniques with alien scientific methods, creating new fields of study that attracted researchers. From across the galaxy, the university's first graduating class included both human and alien students who had learned to work together in environments that would challenge both species. These graduates became the foundation for a new generation of explorers who could push the boundaries of galactic civilization into regions that had been considered impossible to reach. General Webb oversaw the transformation of Earth's military from a desperate defense force into a training academy for extreme environment operations. Human soldiers began teaching alien forces how to survive and operate in hostile conditions while learning advanced technologies and tactical methods from their former enemies. The training programs proved so successful that species from across the galaxy began sending representatives to Earth to learn environmental adaptation techniques. The planet that had been targeted for conquest became the most sought-after training destination in galactic civilization as species recognized the value of human expertise. Commander Thorne completed his sentence of military service, working alongside human environmental specialists to develop new life support technologies. His experience with the catastrophic failure of traditional galactic approaches to hostile worlds gave him unique insights into the importance of human adaptation techniques. The final scene of the transformation occurred in the research laboratory, where Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Zilara worked side by side studying samples from worlds the galaxy had written off as uninhabitable. Zilara wore a full environmental suit while Elena worked in a simple lab coat, but both scientists were focused on the same goal of expanding the boundaries of galactic civilization. Their research had already identified dozens of worlds that could be made habitable using human environmental adaptation combined with alien technology. These worlds represented new homes for billions of beings and resources that could transform galactic civilization. The species that had been dismissed as weak had become the key to unlocking the galaxy's greatest opportunities. The war that had begun with alien dismissal of human capabilities had ended with the recognition that humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans were not weak beings struggling with their environment, but rather the most environmentally adapted species anyone had ever encountered. Earth was not a garden world with vulnerable inhabitants, but a fortress world that had forged its people into something the galaxy had never seen before.